Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
The rest of your life is unwritten. That's good news, right? Now what? Now what? That could be scary too. Like, wait a minute, I have to come up with whatever is next. How do you decide what's next for you? What is your practice, or why are you where you are in the first place? Why are you here where you are? Does it feel like things are happening in your life that are out of your control? It can feel like that sometimes, huh? Especially in the midst of an ongoing global pandemic, right? We're in the final chapter of Robert Brummett's book, Living Originally. I'm so grateful for him and for him bringing these teachings to us in Unity, 10 spiritual practices to transform your life. So if you haven't heard any of the previous talks, I invite you to go back and check those out on podcasts or YouTube and just check in with all the practices, because they're all really worthy of our time and attention and bringing our consciousness to them, because they really are transformative. And they're meant to lead you into living from within out, which the way that we live, the regular path of our culture is living from without in, right? Letting things happen, reacting, responding, letting them point the way to the path. So this is a different path than the usual human way of going. This is a spiritual path. This practice is meaningful to me, this practice of I am the author of my life, because it asks the question, are you the author, or are you a character in your story, or maybe are you both? And I spent a lot of time in my life professionally playing characters. I studied professionally as an actor and then went on to perform for years in many productions. And so what I discovered about that experience was that this personality that I call Jeanmarie could change and become the personality of Peggy Sawyer or Ruby or Sabrina or whatever character that I was playing in the moment, that I became different. And not only was I different, but I was believable to other people as this different person with different gestures and different likes and tap dancing maybe, or whatever it was that that person did in that role. And what I noticed about that these roles kept changing, the types of characters I was playing changed, but that there was a part of me that's consistent, that was always the same, no matter what kind of show or role I was performing in. Some people think that actors are like pretending they're doing make-believe. A really good actor, like the best actors, are working to create as much of a true reality as possible. So they're not wanting to put on a facade, they're wanting to bring forth. So the intention is always to bring forth your own experiences and connection to the character, and do research just to really make it as alive and true to in the performance. And in my own efforts as an artist of attempting to create characters that were as real as possible, what I discovered underneath all those characters was my own inner light. And I discovered that I had a desire to more know that light and to know that true self, that authentic self, than to try to fit that into these written characters that didn't always have like a true reality, right? We create a lot around that to give them life, that I really was more interested in my own authentic self and bringing that to the world. How could I do that? So I went on a journey that took me a lot of different places and eventually brought me to Unity and Unity teachings. And I felt at home, which I know a lot of us have that feeling when we come to Unity, like this is something that I've been believing, and grateful that there's a place that also believes that a tradition and a philosophy that aligns with that truth. In the text, Robert Brummett tells of his own experience of becoming the author of his own life. And what he shares about was a lecture that he went to where it was a famous, well-known motivational speaker, and he told the audience, "You are the author of your life. Take charge of your life, become a creator rather than a victim." So he knew he didn't want to live that victimhood anymore. He was inspired, and he made great changes in his life. He completely changed his career path, made a lot of changes, and what he discovered was that while he created the life he wanted, it was the life he thought he wanted. But there was something more. It turned out that the outer circumstances didn't make him any much happier than he was before. That he wanted something deeper than a change in the outer. He was seeking a different life, a different life. You get the difference between changing the outer circumstances and wanting a different life. And what he meant by a different life was he wanted to be transformed. He didn't want just the circumstances to change, because he's tried that. He was looking for deep personal transformation. And so what he shares about that are there are two types of spiritual practices. There is the spiritual practice called translational, and those are teachings that help you to change the outer circumstances of your life, to increase your finances, to get the home you want, the relationship that you want, to live in the place you want, do the work you want to do, and those are wonderful. And yet there is still that character of you who is going through those experiences, right? And so that stays consistent. And there are transformational practices. And these are practices that don't focus on changing any outer circumstances. These transformational practices focus on changing the person themselves. And this is what he's speaking to in this living originally. The transformation of the person that you are, your own evolution is another word for it, evolving your consciousness. Have you ever felt that feeling like there's a part of you that wants to break free, that's in there, that wants to be seen and heard and shared, and it just, you're looking for that place or that time or even someone to see that in you, to call it out? We've been through so many different experiences, I think, in our lives that are calling us into our full potential, and we're not always able to identify that that's what's happening. So there's a practice of actualizing this full potential, and that's our spiritual evolution. And it's important that we know that the same intelligence, the same life force that is evolving life everywhere, all over creation, right? All over the universe, multiverse, is evolving life in you right now. That same intelligence and life force energy is evolving in you right now. It can't be otherwise. That is how the nature of God works. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin was a Jesuit priest and a paleontologist, and he lends something wonderful to this understanding of human evolution in that he created a visionary map of human possibility, moving from the alpha to the omega point. And what this process is a theory of evolution, and it explains how all beings led by humanity are evolving to this omega point. And what the omega point is a hypothetical point that he has defined that would be in the future, at some future time, where our human consciousness and all creation become so fully integrated in the conscious awareness of our oneness with God. That we're truly and fully integrated in that consciousness of oneness. And that is the omega point in his theory. And this is the ultimate purpose of our shared story of humanity. So we have our own local story of our own lives and experiences, where we grew up, our family, what kind of work we do, friendships, all that kind of thing. And that is the content within the context of the greater story of God consciousness evolving in and through all creation and leading us into this omega point according to Teilhard de Chardin. We are being pulled by the future, he says, not pushed by the past. Pulled into a future by the omega within us, calling us, the omega self, he calls it. And we are at the cutting edge of evolution on this planet, he says, as human beings. Humans are at the cutting edge of this evolution because humanity is now at a point where we've become responsible for our own evolution. So know that you being here and brought to Unity teachings or brought to this satsang is part of your awareness that you're called to consciously evolve. And so we're wanting to choose practices to engage that evolution more fully, right? You are an integral part of the larger story of evolution. We talk about in Unity how when you evolve, when you grow, when you transform, when you change, that it blesses all people and that your consciousness is connected with all consciousness and uplifts the consciousness of all people by the virtue of your practice, which is why we do the metta practice at the end, to remind ourselves of our connection with all, and that we do this not just for our own evolution, but as a part of the larger story. So in this practice of I am the author of my life, see yourself as more than your personal story, than your space, your content that's usually, right here, your home, your life, your career, and that kind of thing. See yourself being pulled by that omega point, which is the expression of the divine potential in and through and as you. So there's that question of, am I the character in my story? Am I the author of my life? So the answer that Robert Brummett gives us is that your divine potential is authoring your life, And at the surface, you are a character storied by the omega, created by the omega that is expressing this story that your divine potential is creating for you, that is yet unwritten, right? It is a process of creation rather than already created. So nothing is predestined. This is good news, which means there's always that possibility of growth and expansion and change. As you evolve spiritually, the gift of that is that your identity shifts from the lead character, the persona, personality, ego structure, to the author of your life, the author of your story. So ultimately, you're creating your life and you're experiencing your life, and it's simultaneous. Everything in your life is the result of the choices that you've made. So that is something you can explore and think about, or just accept as that this is how reality works, that the circumstances of your life have been created by the choices that you've made, and many of them, perhaps all of them, have been made unconsciously, possibly following familiar patterns and ways of doing things, or what has been enculturated into you, that kind of thing. And so we're waking up to living more consciously, and now that you know that you are the author of your life, you can make choices that are in alignment with your true purpose. So coming into that awareness, and that was one of the practices that I brought to the meditation today, was that centering into the still point so that you could really listen to that inner guidance. So this practice is calling on us to, again and again, connect with that omega point, that still point, the divine potential within you, and to listen and to call forth those ideas and guidance and ways to follow from the omega self, which really is an older, wiser, more evolved version of the ego, which is what Robert Brummett defines it as. So it is that of you that has gone through the evolutionary process and is older and wiser and more divinely informed. So we tap into that, and as you bring your attention to that omega self through practice, you lose the identity of the actor, but you gain a larger identity as actor-author. Actor-author becomes your awareness. So the thing about this practice is you have to get the feel of it yourself. I can tell you about it. I can tell you my own experiences, but the way for you to really know it is to experience it. It's like riding a bike. I could show you myself riding a bike, and you could go, okay, well, I see how that works. And then you could get on, fall right off, and that's the end of it, right? So the riding a bike would entail some things, right? It would entail me giving you a bike, or you having a bike and getting on the bike, and maybe you'd have training wheels, maybe someone would hold the handle for you, handlebars, help you to find balance, and you're going to fall. You're going to fall over, you're going to get out of balance. Riding a bicycle is a practice of being out of balance and balance, just constantly finding that balance, discovering balance. Just like when we walk, we're actually falling forward again and again. We're going out of balance into balance and catching ourselves. It's that balancing act. So as you bring your consciousness to balance and to the omega self, right, you get a sense of what imbalance is and what's out of balance. There's a Zen story of a student who comes to a Zen master and asks, what's the most important thing for me to learn? And the Zen master says, good judgment. And the student says, how can I learn good judgment? And the Zen master says, bad judgment. Bad judgment. So we're coming into this omega point is going to be a practice, and there are going to be ways we want to give ourselves grace around that as we feel into it and just really sense it. In the song, one of the lines in the unwritten song that we just shared says, we've been conditioned to not make mistakes, but I can't live that way. So that's one of the things that keeps us from living authentically, is that, well, we want to protect ourselves, right? Not falling out of line, making mistakes, or taking too many risks, or whatever it is. And then we can limit ourselves so much that we've limited our own possibilities, and we can lose touch of what our real purpose is and what our potential is and how we can more fully express. So there's that conditioning that shows up, and it's that willingness to step out of that and into a greater reality. We begin to see that the personal self and the omega self are really one. We begin by seeing them as separate. We practice tapping into the omega self, and ultimately we begin to see them as one, because truly they are one. So know that the answers for your life really can only come from you. And I know, if you're like me, I wanted other people to give them to me. Really, I have. And, and again, I've learned that lesson of recognizing that the answers that I'm truly seeking are the ones that come from my heart. A Path with Heart, we did a series on that. What is calling from your heart to do and be and express. And it doesn't mean you have to take on a whole new life and a new job and all that kind of thing to do it. It's really more focusing on your intention. What's your intention? And making the decisions that you have to make secondary to that intention that you have for your life. Your intention for your life. What's your intention for your life? What's your intention for your practice? Why are you coming to Wednesday Night Satsang or Wednesday services or having a meditation practice? What are you hoping to experience as a result of doing those practices? You want to notice what has juice for you. So, like recently I saw an ad for this certain training that was a meditation training, and I was like, that sounds amazing. I so need to do that. And I recognize I didn't have time for that right now. Might be something I do in the future. I didn't have time. But what was important to notice there was my enthusiasm about it. Like, oh, that's telling me something about my purpose and what I love and how I want that to express. So notice that when you're noticing things in your life that have energy for you and excitement for you. It might not necessarily be that you choose that, but make some note of it, that is telling you something about your intention and your desires and what's in your heart. Your true self is that part of you that is guiding you. And so this is a practice of really trusting that, listening to it, and dancing with it in your life. So I invite you to engage in this practice and allow the actor of you and the author of you to become one. Namaste. And so now's the time where we share about our experience with the practice, what's up for us, anything that we gleaned from the lesson, or just some ideas that are stirring.
Well, thank you. Your talk reminded me of one of my favorite songs from the past. It was called Every Day I Write the Book. Every day I write the book. And what you're saying is that I'm responsible. Like I'm responsible for my life. And that wasn't always an easy message, because it's so much more gratifying sometimes to blame other people and blame conditions and blame situations. But when I have to say, you know what, it's about me, it's about what I'm creating, I'm choosing, I'm writing this book. That's progress. I mean, that's the spiritual evolution that you were talking about. And not always an easy road if you're experiencing that. I understand. I hear you. But that's the path.
Yeah, we have to let go of the victim story, because there's a lot that we can get out of that, right? When we share that, oh, well, this is because my family was like this, or because I was raised like this, or where I'm from, or I don't know, whatever that story is. We all have one, and we all can get a lot of juice out of it. And this is asking us to really let that go.
Yeah, and another way of us thinking about it is to know what you've been praying for. Look at what you have. Mm-hmm. Or I guess a more empowering way is to get what you want what you have. And that is a little bit comforting in the moment, in getting responsible. Recognizing that, okay, I am the captain of my ship. I have authored my experience heretofore, and this is what I have manifest. That's great. But if I want to affect the future, as you were talking about, then you have to get a clear idea for what that is, the omega point, and then live into it. And I thought what might be useful is to share a specific example of, as I'm getting older and my vision for what I need to be creating with my life, it's like I've checked a lot of my boxes. And I'm grateful for that. But one specific one was becoming a father. I wanted to be a dad since I was an adolescent. And it burned in me. It was just like a very clear calling. And yet I knew also, since adolescence, that I am queer to the core. And in Oklahoma, where I grew up, and at that time period, it's like, how is that going to happen? Because for a brief period, it looked like it was going to be either or. Either I can live my authentic self and not be a father, or I can be a father and essentially live a lie. And I didn't linger there hardly any time at all. I couldn't make sense of that. And so I created a prayer, and I said, okay, God, if this is not mine, take it away. Take away this desire. Of course, that didn't happen. And so the way I want this to happen is I want to be a dad. I want it to happen with grace and ease. I want it to work for everyone. And literally then for decades, I prayed into that prayer, and I just kept it in front of myself, and anything that didn't look like that, I just politely removed out of the way, and I just kept that vision. I kept living into it over and over. So to make a long story short, I am a father. I'm still core to the core, and my son is incredible manifestation of my dream. Now there's a whole other chapter of what it is to be a father, as to becoming a father. But that's probably exceeds the scope of what we're here to talk about tonight. But anyway, I just wanted to share that personal example.
Yeah, I love this idea about the omega point that you taught us, that we're always being pulled into the future, that there's always more, that no matter how old we are, there's always more for us to allow and to embody, so that we're always going somewhere. I like that, that even if physically I'm still living in the same house or working at the same job, I'm going somewhere. I'm evolving spiritually. That's the plan anyway. So thank you.
And I think sometimes we have to update people on our progress, because as you referenced, sometimes we have external influences that have seemingly created the condition that we're in, as it's demonstrated in every way, our relationships, our homes, our bodies, our work, that they've sort of happened in a dance that sort of happened to us, and we had a little bit to do with it, but it's kind of like, okay, I'm ready for an update, I'm ready for an upgrade, and I'm going to live into that omega point. And I might be heading in that direction, but if people are still seeing me in the place of limitation where it's like, okay, now I'm shedding myself. I think about addiction, if some people are trying to turn over their lives and they're trying to get a toehold and living an entirely different life, we're told you may need to change your places, people, and things. You may need to reorganize that part of your life. So that becomes part of the task too, is to update people on what your omega point is.
Yeah, wow. Definitely.
Something else that really struck me from your talk was when you were talking about great actors allowing the character to emerge through them. I never really thought about that before, and of course I love Meryl Streep and other great actors, and I never really thought about that, is they're not putting something on. And the reason that struck me so much is I'm very interested in allowing being to emerge through me, so that we tap into that revelation, that being is revealed through us as us. So just like the actor revealing a character, that's what I want with my life, is to, and I think of being as the eternal, expressing as action and relationship. So in my actions and in my relationships, how am I allowing the divine to emerge through me as being? And so thank you. I like that.
Yeah, that is, it's just a wonderful sharing. And I related to what you said, David, about that being called to be a parent and then evolving that ability to be a parent, and to, like, you become a parent, and then that evolves as the child gets older. So, yeah.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.